Hello and welcome back, guys. So today I'm just making a little video that has been running on my mind for quite a while now. I saw this guy called Gabe Bolt on YouTube, so the inspiration is from him. My take on it is, I figured a lot of people my age but also older or younger have financial difficulties, and I'm not a financial expert, just up front, so anything I say right now is not advice. You shouldn't just blindly follow me and do what I tell you to do. But I'm giving you an overview of what I do. I'm not rich, but I never have financial difficulties. And there's a system behind it, it doesn't just come like that. I wasn't born in a wealthy family. I wasn't given the money. I wasn't winning the lottery. So all the money I have, I worked for. And I see some of my friends, my peers, other people my age, and they're doing worse financially. Of course, there's always people doing better than you as well, but I figured a lot of people struggle. And what Gabe talks about in his video is that, the whole thing with buy now, pay later has become almost the standard in our generation, speaking of Gen Z and whatever comes after. And more and more people start to rely on other people or other services like buy now, pay later. And I see a problem with that, not because of me, because I don't use these kind of services. I never leased a car. I never bought something on credit. Only credit I believe in is like good credit, so when you take credit to finance your business, for example, or in some circumstances, if you buy property and you rent a property out to people, that's when like a 20-year-old usually doesn't have $1 million in the bank account, so you make a down payment of $200,000 and the rest you take credit. Okay, you can do that, but it's not the same as buying something on credit that you're just consuming. So let's say a car or a shirt or shoes or whatever you're consuming, and everything I own is bought, everything I own is paid for in cash or with my own money, so I have no ongoing payments. I have subscriptions, my phone, stuff like that, but that's relatively small money. But I don't have like big stuff. I pay rent, but that's the only thing. But even that, I don't like paying rent because I know that paying rent is nonsense. You need to own stuff. This car, it's bought, it's a Mini, 13 years old. I see a lot of people my age or younger, older, it doesn't matter. They get cars they can't afford. And that means, or what it means to be able to afford a car is not thinking, like a lot of people think they have money or like they can afford it when, let's say the lease is like $800 a month and they make, $5,000 a month, and then they think, oh, look, I can afford it. The thing is though, only because you make $5,000 doesn't mean that you can spend $5,000, because if you do that, you never get ahead in life. If you lease a car, I'm sure you know that, but you spend more money. Ultimately, it costs you more money because the interest rate is also costing you money. And the longer you pay interest, the more money it's going to cost you. But of course, the longer you pay interest, the lower the monthly fee is going to be. So what a lot of young people make, the mistake they make is they think, if I just stretch it to 48 months, so that's about 4 years. That's what a lot of people do, and they have a payment of, let's say, $500 a month. And they think, this is nothing. But what they don't see is that in the end, they're gonna pay more for the car than if they bought it outright. And this is common knowledge in my industry, but I think even, maybe some people don't know that for some reason. And I think if you're getting into buying something or leasing something, you should always know the finances, always know the ups and downs or the pros and cons of it. So I'm not a fan of leasing. My rule that I have in life, I think I mentioned this before in this vlog, is that I don't buy something if I can't afford it at least 3 times without it financially impacting me. Let's say I have $10,000 on my bank account and there's a car for, let's say, $9,000. I'm not gonna buy the car, because even then, theoretically, I have enough money and I even have $1,000 if something goes wrong, or for insurance or whatever. But that's not the rules I live by. What I would do is, let's say a car costs $9,000, I would make sure I have at least $30,000 on my bank account, at least. Because then, you could afford it comfortably 3 times. Not that you do that, but you can. And that's all the thing. Like, money buys you options. And it's not really the product that you consume or that you buy, it's the options that you have. Having the option to afford something, but you don't have to, but if you wanted to, you could. That's what gives me peace, and that's what I'm doing with my money. That's why I want to have money, because I want the peace of mind. I want to know that, whatever happens, I can survive. I could drive some AMG and maybe people would be impressed. Maybe people will give me compliments for the car, or even for the YouTube, people will probably think, yeah, I'm some rich guy. And like, it's easy to afford an AMG, you can lease one and pay like 800 francs a month and you got it. But you're bound to something. You have a monthly ongoing cost. It's not really benefiting you, not making you money. But I think a lot of people are over consuming and not buying things that make them money, but buying things just to consume or just to brag. And I'm not saying that I'm a minimalist, but I'm definitely frugal, and I've always lived frugal in my life. And that's how I achieve things, partly. That's part of the reason why I can now do what I'm doing without thinking or without worrying. So there's a line on the song by Jay-Z where he says, why Jewish people own all the property, and then he says that's how they did it. And like, what he's referring to is Jewish families, historically speaking. I'm not saying this is just Jewish people or that Jewish people are taking over the world, but what I'm saying is that Jewish people are usually very well educated, and they know that owning stuff is better than paying for it. Well, you might think, okay, but when they own something, they have to pay for it too. Yes, but they pay one time and then they own it, and then they don't pay interest on it. But what they do is they increase the value. Let's say you buy a house, over time, it's very likely to increase in value. But if you never own something, you just rent or you just lease, you're losing money. And maybe the apartment that you live in, the value of that goes up over time, but you're not profiting from it. So your landlord is profiting of it as like twice, because he can increase the rents and he has your monthly rental payments that are coming in. But if you own the property, you're in his position, and that's the power. And I think, if you're really into real estate and like start to care a bit or read a bit about history and read a bit about families and power dynamics and stuff like that, you're gonna see that there is a lot of Jewish names on these or in these property contracts and whatever, especially in places like New York. It's insane, or Zurich as well, the city I'm from. And it's quite interesting. And I don't mind, I'm blaming anyone for owning stuff, or for not owning stuff. It's just how the world is, and I think you can be on either side. You can just be consuming, or you can be the one profiting from people consuming. And I'm not saying to stop consuming stuff at all, because this is how the world works. Like, people buy, people work, and they spend the money again. I'm really against this overconsumption of my generation, and of like people just buying stuff and never being satisfied. Getting a new car every year, getting a new phone every year. Look, I have an iPhone 14. I record all my videos on an iPhone 14, and this phone is like, 5 years old maybe, and I'm not upgrading, because why should I? Because some girls maybe think that I'm rich when I have an iPhone 17 Pro. Like, this is, that's the problem of our generation. We just do stuff to impress people, but it is, if you think about it, it is pointless, and I'd rather have somebody figure out the hard way that I have maybe, some money elsewhere, rather than in a new phone every year just to be able to brag. But yeah, I think you get the idea. Some parts of the economy are going down. I read some articles about America where people live from paycheck to paycheck, and I know this is not just America, this is an international thing. A lot of people seem to have the problem to living from paycheck to paycheck, and even then not getting by. Like, if they lose one paycheck, they're screwed. And of course, this is a terrible way of living, and it is very easy to say that, you just gotta work more or whatever. But I think a lot of people don't understand that even if you make $10,000 or $20,000 a month, it doesn't mean that you're rich. Because I personally know people, I'm not gonna drop names here, but I know people who make a good living, who earn 6 figures a year or more, and they still don't have money. And that's not because they don't earn enough. It's not because they don't have the title. It's not because of any of that. It's simply because they're spending all the money, they're consuming all the money that they make. And that's what a lot of people do, and that's why a lot of people live paycheck to paycheck, because they consume their money instead of putting it somewhere or saving it where it just is used for good causes, like buying a house or buying a car that maybe increases in value. And another thing I do or never do is buying a new car, because a new car, for example a Taycan, if you buy that for like 160,000, the moment you drive it off the lot, it's worth like 20% less. And it's not just with Porsches or Ferraris, it's also with cars that we drive every day. I mean, this car was $45,000 when it was new. This is fully spec'd out and it has like all the extras and everything. But imagine I paid 45, now this car might be worth around 10,000 francs 13 years later. So whoever bought this car first lost all the money, and now I'm just driving it for free essentially, because I'm not really losing money on this anymore. Of course, it's not with any car, you know, maybe the car in front of me, the BMW, is not going to increase in value because it's nothing special. But a Mini Cooper S, you know, people start to realize that these cars are good, and they don't build cars like that anymore. Little fun hot hatches with a manual 6-speed gearbox, I mean, it doesn't exist anymore. So this car is becoming rare. Once something becomes rare, you know what happens. And I'm not gonna say that this is gonna be $100,000 car, but it's probably gonna be worth more than it is now in 10 years. And same with the Abarth, you know, it was a fun car and now they build electric Abarths. So I had like the last petrol engine Abarth that they built. And of course, you know, there's only one direction it can go because people want it. Like, people want petrol engine cars, but they can't get it. So demand goes up, but the offers go down. So automatically the value increases. Mark my words, this is not with every car. You have to like have a bit of a feeling for the market. It's like the same as with watches or houses as well. You know, not everything goes up. Like, it really, with houses, it depends on the city, the area, a whole bunch of different things that are coming into play. But when you're really into a niche or into, you know, into a certain market and you understand the dynamics, you can make a lot of money by just buying something, waiting a bit, and then selling it for more than you bought it for. And that's what I do with cars, for example. It's like a win-win for me, because I have a vehicle that I can drive, but also I make money by driving that vehicle. Over the last years, it has been a concerning development or a concerning ongoing thing that companies start to build stuff that is not built to last, because being productive is only a good thing when people buy. But you know, companies over the last 100 years have become so insanely productive that now they cannot build good products anymore, because that would mean that people are not buying as frequently, and that would mean that they're losing revenue, and they can't do that. So they always have to keep going, they have to keep investors happy, so they have to make products last not as long as they used to. You see it with cars, you see it with phones, you see it with TVs, like everything. Why do you think there's cars from 1965 driving still? Because those cars were built to last. But 65 years from now, I don't know how many Teslas you're gonna see on the street, because simply these cars aren't built to last. And also, they make things increasingly difficult to deal with. For example, like my motorcycle I bought is very easy to fix yourself, because it's very accessible. It's a 1-cylinder air-cooled engine. It's easy to work on, even for somebody like me who is not a trained mechanic. But if you buy like a modern sports bike or something, or a BMW GS, whatever, these motorbikes are quite complex to work on yourself, or even like cars even more. You know, motorbikes are easier to work on in general, but modern cars, if you buy an electric car that doesn't even have an engine, you cannot work on it yourself. So you're forced to go to a garage and get it fixed, or maybe they can't even fix it and you just have to get a new car. And it's the same with, like, you know, modern phones or modern laptops, where they start gluing the batteries to the housing, to the case, so that you can, you know, if the battery is not working, you basically are forced to get a new laptop. Which now, you know, we're going in the other direction as well, because Apple, for example, or like, you know, in general, companies are forced by the EU to have a replaceable battery in their product. Otherwise, they're not going to be able to sell in Europe. So Apple, you know, had to make some strategic changes now that they're not losing the European market. So they have to now, with the new MacBooks, you know, the Neo, they have to have a easily replaceable battery in order to sell it. And this is becoming a trend, which is, you know, a good trend for consumers. Maybe not for the companies, but that's a different story. It's a very difficult market right now in general, you know, with demand and needs and AI and all that stuff. A lot happening, but yeah, definitely an interesting time to be alive. And I would say the last thing that is just something that takes your money away or eats your money alive is subscriptions, which, you know, as I said, I am part of the problem myself because I have some subscriptions going on. But if you compare it to back in the day, maybe 50 years ago or even 20 years ago, if you bought a movie, you bought the movie and you owned it. If you bought a car, you bought the car and you owned it. It's not like you're owing somebody a monthly payment. And now it's just all based on payments. Even on YouTube, you know, now you can like buy YouTube Premium. Like you could do that for years now, but essentially if you want to watch YouTube videos without ads, you have to pay for it. And of course this is because YouTube has become too big for its original idea. Back then they had a lot of budget for, you know, from companies, so an individual creator was paid quite a lot of money per 1,000 clicks. Now this is going down year by year because there are simply too many people creating stuff online, and YouTube has become too big. It has become like the biggest media platform. I'm not sure if that's true, but like certainly one of the biggest media platforms in the world, and there's simply too much competition and too much availability to place ads that they cannot pay you as much as they used to anymore. It's not profitable anymore. So what is my final conclusion to this all? I would say we should all live more frugal and not consume as much, become more of a creator than a consumer, not just with media but in general in life. Build a company instead of just making someone else rich. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine too, but at least try to be a bit more frugal, you know, try to buy a car in cash, buy like a 20-year-old car instead of a new car, because you're gonna lose way less money. And keep it reasonable. Only buy something if you can afford it 3 times. I think if you follow that, or if you track your expenses and your income a little bit more, then yeah, you're gonna do a lot better. And next time you want to spontaneously go to America and, you know, you need $2,000 for the flight, you'll think of me maybe and say, yeah, thank you for the advice. You know, now I can do this. I don't have to worry about the prices anymore. And even if it gives you a little bit more freedom, it is worth doing it. So with that being said, thank you guys for watching for my little video. I know these videos are, you could say, boring and like it's a lot of information but not a lot happening, but I'm doing this on purpose because I don't want these videos to be for people with a short attention span. Like, I'm doing this for people who really want to learn something and who really want like real advice from a real person, not AI. So this is my life experience, and if you watch until here, drop it in the comments. Let me know. I appreciate you, and yeah, see you next time.